let me introduce myself to everybody that's tuned in, that's streaming in through the Gathering Spot, and I am Big Jerry Clark, aka Legendary Jerry, and this is my co-host, Miss Jamie Page. And he's already been on here talking, but I have to give him the proper introduction.
Right. We got to give him an introduction.
Yeah, I got to give him an introduction. This is an incredible, well-versed gentleman, political activist, one half of the almighty group Underground Kings, and Professor Bun B. Everybody give it up, wherever you are in the world watching. Give it up for Bun B. I hope I did you right with the introduction. I know I left off several other adjectives that I could have used to describe you, brother.
No, that's pretty high praise. You did a great job, man. And you let me know how much I owe you for that introduction.
I'll invoice you. But we want to jump right into it, man. And it's interesting, and you know me and Killer Mike's relationship. Me and him was talking the other day, and we was just talking about Southeast Texas and Port Arthur in that area. What advantages would you say growing up in Port Arthur versus in Houston did that have as far as impacting you creatively?
I think for one, drive, right? Like, having a greater purpose to succeed, coming from a very small town, there weren't really a lot of opportunities that were kind of just thrown at us. So basically, if you wanted something out of life, you had to fight for it in that small town. You know what I'm saying? Whereas a city like Houston probably has a lot of more opportunity for people. And, that's on every level, right? You know what I'm saying? So if you're an athlete, if you're, going to, a business person, if you're an entertainer, there's a lot more avenues for you available in the city of Houston. Like Port Arthur didn't even have a radio station. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was the thing, really was driving purpose more than anything, right? Like if you wanted to be somebody, you had to make a concerted effort to put yourself in the best position possible to become someone. Like no one from Port Arthur, Texas gets where they're trying to go in like by accident, right? Like there's no such thing as failing upward in a town like that.
And sadly, there's a lot of small cities in America that's like that.
So with that,
absolutely.
So with that being said, what was like the path that you guys took to make yourself known in Houston?
Well, I mean, we came into the city at basically the right time. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of territorial situations in the city of Houston when we first came in. North side of Houston and the south side of Houston didn't necessarily get along on a lot of levels at that time, but we were able to navigate through the city because we weren't from either, right? So north side dudes couldn't really move around on the south side, and south side dudes couldn't really move around on the north side. But because of the fact that we weren't from either side, we were able to kind of move around the way we wanted to, and we were just much more aggressive about being successful. We were never lackadaisical about it. It was no such thing as, well, if it happens, it happens, and if not, I'll fall back on this. There was no, in terms of being successful and really making an impact in the world, there was no plan B for us, right? So it just made it more adamant that we push through to get to where we wanted to go. You know what I'm saying?
So that makes y'all journey even more respectful. And let's go back to that. I know Jamie brought up the beginning. At first, y'all was signed to a production company, Big Time Records. So how did that whole relationship come about with Barry and them, Barry Weiss over at Jive and Clive Carter? How did that whole Jive, Big Time Records, UGK, how did that all come about?
So the UGK EP, The Southern Way, which was our first project with Big Time Records, it released the same weekend as the Crisscross album.
Oh.
Right? But in Southeast Texas, Houston, Southwest Louisiana, and all these different distribution centers and one-stops, we were getting more artists for our product than they were. So that kind of put us on certain radars. You know what I'm saying? It's like, who is this group that I've never heard or seen before that's outselling you know, the hottest group in the world right now in these particular markets. And Houston has always been like a top 3 market for buying music.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Southwest Wholesale, y'all had
Absolutely.
Southwest Wholesale in that area. And then, like you just said, in those early days, between Selecto Hits and Southwest Wholesale, I mean, if you was pressing up those type of numbers, I see why the labels was just like, shit, who the fuck is this? Because I know
And
the
then Southwest,
they have with those indie distributors.
yeah, and then Southwest, you know, we had a relationship with Southwest because Big Time Records was a record store, right? So he, you know, he had a relationship with Southwest through, you know, basically buying music.
Yeah, the
from
sound
them.
scan, all in relationships with everything.
Right. So we go in, and I'm actually working at the record store for him at the time. And we go in and we bring them the project, and we let them hear the project. And they were really, you know, amped about getting it. So they not only purchased strong, they pushed it strong.
Yeah.
You know, and in the regions in which they distributed to, their word was king over everything.
Oh,
if
shit.
they called your store and said, hey, we got a hot product right now, people took their word for it and pretty much ordered blindly based off of that, because they didn't, you know, Southwest wasn't going to push anything that they felt was going to have a lot of returns.
They had that much juice too. In those days, they had that much juice.
Yeah, and so, you know, they reached out to their Houston stores, their Beaumont stores, their Lake Charles stores, and different places that they seeded, and was like, yo, we got something hot and new, and we think y'all are going to like it. We like it. We're buying a bunch of it. People are, oh, if you're buying a bunch of it, it must be hot. So, all right, we'll take this. And then people heard it. They liked it. Word of mouth got around. People ordered more and more. And we looked up, and we dropped, I want to say the 3rd week in February. And we moved about 50,000 independently within the next, I would say, 45 to 60 days.
Those numbers, man.
You know?
Those numbers.
And I mean, we didn't have any promo, we didn't have any advertising in any magazines or anything other than the Southwest booklet, right? You know, and you know, the word of mouth just really grew, and we had you know, just a really strong following in that region. And so we started getting calls from many labels, you know, and eventually the calls, it was funny because the first call came from like Warlock.
Hey, you got to be an old school motherfucker to know about Warlock.
Right. So the first call came from Warlock, and Warlock wanted, you know, they were like, we'll give you guys 15 grand. And we're like, no, we're good. And then I can't remember who it was that Mix-a-Lot and those guys were distributed by, but they called next.
I don't remember.
It slips my mind right now.
It wasn't Tommy Boy, was it? It wasn't Tommy Boy.
No, it wasn't Tommy Boy. No, it was a much smaller company. Okay. And then the calls came from pretty much everybody, right? And so the office number for the record company was the phone at the store, right? And so we get all these calls, and then, and I mean, everybody called. Tommy Boy, Def Jam, all these different companies called, right? And we weren't really crazy about the money, right? Because we'd already sold 50,000 units independently. We thought, you know,
a lot of leverage. You had a lot of leverage.
Yeah, we thought if you guys were calling, then it must be a hot product, and we didn't want to undersell ourselves. So we're like, you know, we'll just keep going. So then Saturday, the phone doesn't ring, right? Nobody's calling on Saturday, right? Nobody calls on Sunday. And we start thinking, because the record store is at the flea market, so we're in the store on the weekend, right? And we start thinking maybe we overplayed our hand, right? We're not realizing that record companies are closed on Saturday and Sunday, right? So nobody's in the office.
Yeah.
And so we're like, yo, we might have overplayed our hand on this one. We might have fucked up. And so the first person to call on Monday was Jive.
Wow.
And that ended up being who we went with.
The deal that y'all did, what type of deal? You remember that? I know you remember the numbers. What type of deal was it between when Jive sent that paperwork over and y'all wound up signing?
Oh, it was terrible. It was a 5-project deal.
Little money.
Right. Huh?
Was it little money?
Yeah, like 150 grand. You know, which was, I mean, for what we were doing, it was respectable in our eyes, you know? Yeah. We were like, you know, this is pretty decent money, you know? And you know, like we'll take it because we had nothing as a group. We didn't have anything. You know, we were kids. I had just turned 19. Pimp was getting ready to turn 18. You know, and this was Jive Records. You know, we were big fans of, you know, Houdini and BDP and people like that. So we thought that was good company to be in bed with, you know, and we were like, yeah, we could do this. You know, it wouldn't be hard for us to make 5 albums, you know, so we could fulfill this deal easily. And
hey,
so we
started y'all niggas was moving 50,000 independent niggas. Shit, y'all could have really held that up, but you know, hindsight.
No, and we look back, you know, I remember Draper knowing, because I knew Tony Draper in very early days of Suave House. And, you know, Tony was like, man, I saw what y'all did, and I was like, no, I'm going to hold on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to play this out. But we didn't know anyone. We didn't know anything. We were running a record company out of a record store in a flea market, you know? And we didn't really know how to take it to the next level. We had no idea about
Great point.
About anything, right? We had to kind of create the album cover. Like, we didn't really know where to get things produced, right? Like, I think everything was CD Direct or everything back then.
Boy, we dating ourselves, Bun.
You know what I'm saying? Boy. So we're buying stuff from CD Direct. I went to a printing company and told them that this was what we wanted. Like, I had a friend of mine take the pictures, and I was like, look, this is what we want. And he was like, well, we don't do this. I was like, well, if we pay you, will you do it? And he was like, yeah. So we had to literally bring the artwork and then bring like a cassette insert and basically show them like, this is the sizing that we would need for this. And we need double printing. We need full color on one side and black and white on the other side.
So basically, y'all had your hands in everything from the beginning. Yeah,
yeah. And that company ended up becoming Pen and Pixel.
Yep. And and when I tell you, they had the market cornered. Every time you in the Source, Vibe magazine, rap pages, all the ads from Suave House, everybody from the South, Southwest, Southeast, it was all Pen and Pixel. You know what I'm saying?
And so
and they became huge.
And we were very hands-on with a lot of it at the time. And we just felt like, you know, maybe this was bigger than what we could do. You know, we didn't really have we had no infrastructure. You know,
sometimes you need that label muscle, to be honest. I mean, because like you said, when you don't have the infrastructure, even if you have the funds, you still need that muscle. And that's what a lot of these major labels provide, you know? So, you know, making that decision when y'all made it, I'm not, you know, looking back at it, even from my perspective, being in the industry for these years, it definitely, I look at it, wasn't really a horrible decision because you needed that muscle. Like you said, y'all was running this shit out of record store.
Right. And then the crazy thing was the attorney that we hired, she was a former attorney for Zomba.
Oh, well, shit, yeah.
So we thought hiring her would be to our advantage, but it actually ended up being to their advantage.
Yeah, Jamie, that's a whole nother episode on Bun, how this shit work in this game.
You know what I'm saying?
So,
I mean, and we made, you know, we did the deal and we went to New York. It was our first time going to New York. And Chad had gone on a field trip, but he was like 9 years old or something. But like our first time in our adult lives, like going up to the city and just kind of being overwhelmed by the culture of the city and, you know, excited about, you know, actually being in New York, signing a record deal and signing the deal. And, you know, we were like, yo, we're going to step out in the hallway. We want to talk about something. And we kind of went out in the hallway to celebrate. Yeah. And we saw KRS-One in the hallway.
Wow.
And we were like, wow, KRS, what's up? He was like, what's up? Where y'all from? I'm like, we're from Texas. We came up here to sign with Jive Records. And he was like, did you sign yet? And I was like, yeah, we just signed. He was like, fuck. Oh, well, my bad. Well, good luck.
What? So KRS-One, if it was up to KRS-One, he wouldn't have had y'all sign with y'all.
He was about
absolutely. So we went from
all the business.
So we went from the highest high to the lowest low, in a matter of minutes.
Wow.
Yo.
And that became basically the precursor for years of renegotiation.
Yeah, I was gonna say the rocky would you consider that relationship was kind of rocky over the years?
Oh, that's to say the least. The least. You know what I'm saying? Because we were young and we were used to handling things a certain way, right? And we didn't navigate the business waters well at all. And then from us falling out with Big Time Records and then having to get with someone else to handle the business, that was terrible because the guy that we ended up getting with after we left Big Time Records did us worse than Big Time Records could have ever done us, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we spent years just trying to dig ourselves out of several different holes, you know?
So that's like a big issue that we hear on a lot of these stories here on Storytime with Legendary Jerry is that people didn't know the business aspect of it. So don't you feel that it's like, it should be like a regulation, like a duty for these rappers today to know the business aspect of it?
Well, I think they're in a position to be better informed, right?
Yeah.
Because the communication between older artists and younger artists or signed artists and unsigned artists is a lot better now, right? Like, we didn't know anyone to ask anyone anything about that at the time, right? And so, you know, once we realized how dirty it was, we made a concerted effort to educate the next guys coming up.
Got it.
Good
right?
day, man.
And
That-
again,
that's
a lot of
important.
guys
That's
were
it.
able to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, that's
You
good.
know,
Good.
and that's a blessing in itself, you know what I'm saying? Because
Fucking right.
people like Tony Draper were able to look at everything we did wrong, and he was able to do it right. He held on a little longer, made more independent money, and was able to negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal when he signed, you know?
Because
So, I mean, I'm not mad. Everything kind of played out as it was supposed to.
Man, there are very few artists, period. But in this rap game, Bun, to have at least four classic albums. You and Pimp, of course, Outkast, EPMD, Tribe Called Quest. How did you all stay so cohesively creative for such a long time, man, to put out classic after classic after classic?
I think musically, it all comes down to Pimp. He was extremely ambitious, right? He was extremely knowledgeable about music, right? And because of the fact that we didn't have to go out and like find music, and everything was done in-house, like every UGK album, the core of it is me and Pimp in a room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now there are certain projects where we might have DJ DMD producing on one record or N.O. Joe producing on another record, but the core of UGK, right, musically, sonically, was always Pimp and myself. And we were extremely ambitious in the kind of albums that we wanted to make. For example, Super Tight, the second Jive album from UGK, was originally a double album. And the concept behind it is akin to Speaker Lockbox and Love Below. So the concept for Super Tight was going to be two solo albums, right? It was basically going to be two sides of the cassette. So one side, because remember, this is still pre-CD, right? So the idea was one side of the album would be a Pimp C album, right? Made in the vein of the Mac, right? And then the other side was a Bun B album made in the vein of Scarface.
Some gangster shit.
Yeah, and so that was the concept behind the music. And there's still like 8 to 10 records that we recorded for that project that no one has ever heard. Because they rejected it outwardly, strictly on the fact of we're not going to pay for these movie sounds, right? So there were skits that drew from the movie that led into different songs, right? So, you know, just imagine a 19-year-old kid as a producer trying to create a new oral soundtrack to the movie The Mac. Like that was his concept.
Hey, Don, that's some, man. Is that shit coming out, man?
No, that stuff will never come out. That stuff will never. There's like two or three of them that are floating around online. I'm not gonna tell people how to find them. That's gonna be homework for the night. You know what I'm saying?
I'm finding it, Bob.
You send it to me.
I was gonna say, damn. Can Storytime with Legend, can me and Jamie, can we get a little plug? Shit.
That's homework for tonight. Extra credit. But
Hey,
but yeah, so and so they rejected it outwardly. You know what I'm saying? So we were only able to keep maybe 2-3 records from that initial recording session, and then we added a couple more records onto it, and that ended up becoming the album Super Tight. And so, you know, the level of ambition for us to separate ourselves from everybody else, right, was very high. We had very high standards for ourselves, you know, and I think that always made the difference for us. Riding Dirty as a concept album is literally was imagined as 24 hours on the south side of Houston, right? So everything that encompasses being on the south side of Houston during the 24-hour period, incorporating the after hours, the cars, the clothes, the lifestyle, the candy painted cars, the sipping syrup, smoking swishers, all of that stuff, right? And really just trying to tell the world how life was being lived in Houston and how culturally impactful the lifestyle in Houston was at the time. And people didn't really get it until years later, but we were talking about Screw, we were talking about sipping scissor and the candy cars and the 84 rims on the Vogue tires, all of this type of stuff. Yeah. And, you know, our record company had, and this was the first, Riding Dirty was the first album where we had full creative control, right? Because we had gotten the sampling issues and different songs. You know, on the first album, you know, to backtrack a little bit, the first studio album from Jive Records was actually, you know, it was called Too Hard to Swallow. And there were songs where the samples didn't clear. And so they went in and had someone go into Battery Studios and reproduce our music. So when we got the final copy of our album, there were 3 songs we had never heard before. Like musically, they just literally like, well, the beat didn't clear and we had to, So they were like, the beat didn't clear, so we had to change the music. I'm like, well, why the fuck didn't y'all call us? And so things like that, right? Things like that cause a lot of friction.
So they just changed it without letting you guys know.
Absolutely. And contractually, they were allowed to do so because we had no idea.
Wow.
There were so many different things in our contract that we weren't aware of.
So it took Riding Dirty. That's when y'all had full control. Finally.
Absolutely. When we got to Riding Dirty, that was when we were like, because we refused the advance for Riding Dirty. We refused the money. And we said, you can keep the money if you give us an SSL board, right? If you give us an SSL board, you can keep the money, but just take the album that we give you as is, you know? And so there was more, because we didn't take a cash advance, there was more money available for sample clearance.
Interesting.
So we were like, well, we just need the equipment. We don't need the money. We can make the money if we have the equipment.
Yeah. That's dope, because it wasn't about the money. It was about being an artist.
Right. And if you make good music, the money will come. That's the reality.
I mean, that's anything.
We sitting here talking to you, man. You just a laid back, cool ass nigga, man. With having a partner like Pimp, the outspoken, the never bite his tongue, did that ever cause any conflict where it's like, yo, man, just any friction between y'all? Like, hey, man, like, Pimp.
Not really, right? Because initially, Pimp was the calm one. I was the wild guy.
Damn.
In the earlier years, right? During those first 2-3 years of UGK, right? During like, because Pimp was never like vocal about a lot of things, right? So if you look at the Too Hard to Swallow days and the Super Tight days, I was a bit of the wild character. You know, I was out in the streets. I had guns I shouldn't have had. I was doing, you know, smoking fry and shit like that, which is basically PCP.
Yeah.
So I was a loose cannon, right? And then after Riding Dirty, the dynamic changed, right? Because I realized that we were heading to a place that we had never had before, right? And so I kind of pulled back my behavior, and I was like, you know what? I want to make sure now that we are making the music that we've always wanted to make, and we're being seen in the way that we've always wanted to be seen, I need to make sure that we're represented the way that I think we need to be represented at the time. Whereas, you know, Pimp realized that, you know, we were the shit, basically. And he just started holding his nuts on everything, right? And I realized that the group doesn't work if there's two there's two bad boys, right? So one of us has to.
Good cop, bad cop.
Balance.
Absolutely. So, and that's what it was. So when he was at home chilling, I was out in the streets wilding. And then when he decided he wanted to come out and take advantage of who he was, I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna have to pull back.
Hey, and that nigga started coming at everybody. I remember when it was an issue with Pimp and Sean Paul from the Young Bloods, because Pimp was saying that he felt as though Sean Paul took his style and was trying to sound like him. And I was like, I remember just hearing all the, because Pimp was here in Atlanta, and I just remember hearing all, it was a lot of shit, words being exchanged in the streets. And then, of course, the whole Jeezy shit. So how did that shit roll over into, with you? Because that's your brother. Shit, his beefs is your beefs.
Right. And a lot of these people you had beef with were friends of mine. Young Bloods, Pretty Ken, all that, first and second generation Dungeon family. Those were all good friends of mine because I actually lived in Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta in '95. Mm-hmm. So I gotten very close to a lot of those cats. Big Gip has been one of my closest friends in this game for many, many years. And so, my thing is, we just got to make sure we move accordingly. I'm always be cordial. I'm gonna be cool and calm about anything. And if somebody try to move, we're gonna move, but I never felt the need to be aggressive in those situations. I felt like everything he was saying, even if I don't agree with what he says, I'm still gonna ride with him on it. Now, after we ride, when we get back, we may have a conversation about it. And I could be like, man, you was tripping, or you might have been wrong about that. But I'm not going to disagree with my brother in public. That's a private conversation.
Yeah, that's true. That's that shit should be handled anyway.
Yeah, and so that's just the way I move. That's just my character, And people know, once I turn it on, I'm not turning it off. So it's best for me to be very cool and calm about that stuff. Because once I decide it's on, then because I'm the older of the two. Yeah. Right. So I'm gonna let my little brother talk all the shit he want to talk, and then if anybody try to touch my little brother, we got some real problems.
Yeah. I hear that. So let's jump back on the music real quick because we only have a limited time, and there's just so much history with you. But I know for me, and I'm sure there's people that are watching that want to know definitely about the Grammy, Jay-Z. How did that even come about? Like the connection with Jay-Z? How did that all transpire?
From what I know and what I remember, us being on Jay-Z's radar came from Clark Kent, right? Mm-hmm. So Clark Kent is the person that introduces Jay-Z to UGK musically. Once Jay-Z decides that he wants to reach out to UGK, that comes through Chaka Zulu. And so prior to Big Pimpin, there was a call made to get Pimp on just a week ago, the song that Jay-Z did with Too Short. Yep. This was in the midst of the West Coast, East Coast beef. And Pimp had just bought a new house in Mableton. Pimp, at this time, I had moved back to Texas, and Pimp had moved to
Pimp was here in Atlanta, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So Pimp had just bought a house in Mableton and had a full studio built in the crib. And so they reach out to him and tell him that they want him on the record. And so Pimp's like, look, I got this new crib, I got a full studio, come down here and we can do the song here. And Jay-Z was like, well, I'm not leaving New York right now. And Pimp was like, well, shit, I ain't leaving the South right now. So I guess we're not gonna do it. And so that record never happened. And then comes back around, Jay-Z reaches out on the next project. And we ended up like, okay, well, we can make this happen. And again, this is all before people are really sending music from one another. Like Riding Dirty, most people don't know, Riding Dirty is probably the first full hip hop album recorded in Pro Tools.
Yeah, I was gonna say before Pro Tools on them 2 inches and all that.
Yeah, because back then people used to have to send the whole 2-inch. And even with Big Pimpin, I went to New York to record, but in order to get Pimp's verse, they had to mail the 2-inch.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying?
Back with the big ass 2 inches.
I'm sorry, Pete?
He still wouldn't go back to, he still wouldn't go to New York to record?
Pimp didn't want to do the record at all.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he didn't want to do the record at all. And for good reason, right? The song sonically, for one, was different from anything that anyone had really been rapping to at the time. It was a very unique sound that Timbaland had brought on that record. But even more so, Pimp's frame of thought was that there's going to be a lot of people that have never heard us before, don't know who we are, and that this is going to be the introduction of UGK to them. And that he felt it was going to be very misleading in terms of the type of songs that we make and the type of music that we're connected to and what we represent. And so his train of thought was that I don't want to do this record because it's going to misrepresent who we are and what we do.
Oh, wow.
You know, which is very sound philosophy.
I can see that. Now looking at it with you breaking it down like that, I can see that.
Right.
So y'all have relationships with Jay and a lot of other New York rappers. But when y'all did that Quit Hating the South, was there one incident that happened that caused that to make
okay. Not really.
Y'all just want to send niggas a message.
Well, the funny thing is that song was done 3 times. So Pimp produced that song during the Super Tight recording sessions. And he was like, it ain't time yet. Like the Lattimore sample was something that he had always wanted to rap to. And that was the only hook that he ever had for that song. But he was like, it ain't time yet. So he made the beat, we played it, we thought about making it. He was like, nah, it ain't time yet. And so he cut the machine off and just, let he never saved the beat, right? So he produced it fully, did the hook, was like, it ain't time, erased the beat. The song comes back up during the Dirty Money sessions. He records the song again, records the hook, right? Because in his mind, he already knows how to make this song, right? So he does it again, all from scratch, does the hook again. He's like, it still ain't time, erases the record. And then he goes to jail, he comes out, Southern music is on top. There's a bit of backlash for all this newfound Southern success from, all the Houston guys blowing up, the Atlanta sound coming into prominence. And he's like, now it's time. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't necessarily a particular incident per se. Like I know, like with Outkast, right? The Source Awards kind of put that battery in their back.
Yeah,
right?
The South got something to say.
Right, and so I think for us, the closest thing to that was we took great offense at KRS saying, KRS made a statement that if you weren't from New York, you weren't making hip hop music. And so this is when Pimp C was like, fuck y'all music, we not making hip hop music, we making country rap tunes, right?
Because when I tell you I'm Quit Hating the South, boy, I swear, I was like, these motherfuckers, they talking straight at somebody. And then with the way Willie D, I was like, I always want to ask Bun, was there like the one incident where it'd be like, you know what? We gonna go straight at these niggas now.
No, it was that initial statement from KRS-One more than anything. But then there was always this feeling, right, that we were never really accepted.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had friends on the East Coast, like Keith Murray is a really good friend of mine. Lord Jamar from Brand Nubians is one of my best friends inside and outside of music.
Yeah.
Right. So we had very good relationships with people from New York. Right. But culturally, Southern music was not really accepted. And I think that's just because of, a lack of frame of reference. Right.
I agree. Because, we got it. We called it hard here in Atlanta, too. It was like, when our scene started really popping and blowing, it was like, well, damn, man, y'all go respect what we doing here in the A. And then like you just said, Houston, Memphis, all the, New Orleans, all these movements in the South, and we was just like, damn, like y'all go eventually had to give us our props down here, man.
Well, I think what happened is that hip hop as a culture and as a business, right, had to kind of go through New York for acceptance, right, and for validation, let's say, right. And as other regions not only figured out how to create music that represented where they were from, but also engage the base in a way that they could sustain themselves, right? Without the need of having to go to New York for justification and validation. That's when people stopped regarding it, And, and New York just wasn't, with all due respect, prepared for that.
Yeah, I agree.
you know, and hip hop as a culture was always reflective of New York as a culture, right? So the majority of music within hip hop was derivative of New York because that's where the majority of the music was coming from, right? But as other regions started to find their identity, right? Figure out a way to sonically perpetuate their identity. And then these southern markets were always the top places where music sold anyway. People realized that we didn't need to go through New York in order to be successful.
Yep.
And
we had all the urban radio stations down here in the South. We had the urban retail, which I mean, they had them in the Midwest and in the East Coast too, but we had the majority of that. And like you said,
right.
We got to the point where we was like, hey, we can control our own destiny and we can, we can represent each other and make the impact we need to make.
And, the only thing was, it was all the media outlets were in, The Source, XXL, Vibe magazine, even like the Blazes and stuff like that. All of that shit was in New York, right?
Yeah.
And we always thought that, well, if you're not in The Source and you're not in XXL and you're not in these different things, then the word wouldn't get out. But then like Rap Pages.
And then Julia Beverly came with Ozone.
With Ozone, right?
Yeah.
So we had our own publications to market our music to our people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And once that happened, and once we figured out how to navigate in that way, there was no turning back.
Yeah.
And if you look now, a lot of those publications really have no more impact on what's hot and what's not.
They don't. Let's talk about this this verse on murder.
Yeah.
Now, Bun, I talked to numerous people, and everybody say the same thing. This is one of the hardest verses in rap history, bro. What was your mindset going into doing that verse? Where was you at?
I was hungover, to be very honest. So the idea of creating a verse like Murder, not necessarily that particular verse, right, was something that
that's one of the hardest verses ever, though, Bun, ever.
Well, I mean, I always wanted to have an opportunity to show my true lyrical ability, right? Because I always looked up to the Cool G Raps, the Lord Finesses, the KRS-Ones, right? People who were very deep thinkers, people who had really good breath control, people who could express themselves very clearly lyrically, the Nas's and so forth. But the kind of music that we made and the bass that we catered to didn't necessitate that, right? Like there was really no need for that because that's not what people necessarily wanted from us. But at the same time, Pimp would go everywhere all the time talking about Bun B can rap all you fools under the table. Bun B can rap, do this and do that. And so I just got to the point like, look, you can't keep saying this to people without giving me an opportunity to showcase that particular ability. And so he was like, all right, I got you. And so the track comes up and he's like, all right, this the one where you get to do everything you want to do. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm like, we're going to lay that tomorrow. I ended up going to the club. I got real high, real drunk, like really wasted that night. And came to the studio the next day, very hungover. And I wrote the verse and then I went to sleep. Like, so I went to sleep while Pimp like tracked the beat out, right? And they inserted the scratches and all that kind of stuff. And then Pimp laid his verse and then they woke me up. And they were like, all right, B, it's your time. It's your time to go lay your vocals. And I was like, fuck, man, I'm tired. My head is killing me. So I'm like, I'm finna go in here and knock this shit out. And again, this is the first rap album operating with Pro Tools. So I have the opportunity to punch in.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm not gonna punch in on this one. I need to be able to say this all the way through with the breath control because I'm gonna end up having to rap this on stage. Like people gonna want me to see me do this on stage.
Fucking
so,
right.
So punching in ain't gonna help me because I need to be able to maintain that breath control in the studio as well as on stage. So I went all the way through one time. I didn't really like it. We went back. I did it over again. And that second take, is what you hear. And then I went back to sleep.
Only 2 takes.
Yeah.
Hey, you killed that shit, pun intended, on Murder.
Yeah.
You killed it.
Yeah, no, and I didn't realize in the moment, right? But there had never been, well, there wasn't a reason to be that lyrical making Southern music, right? You didn't want to really go over people's heads with wordplay and that kind of stuff, because that wasn't what people were coming to the music for. They were coming for realistic tales of life in the South.
Yeah.
You know? But I wanted to be considered amongst the greats, you know? And I just wanted that one opportunity to prove that I could rap as good or better than the rest of these niggas.
Yeah.
And then
once you sure fucking showed everybody.
Right. You proved
we knew before that, but that verse right there, that just solidified it for all of us. I mean, we already knew. We was like, man, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jamie.
I was gonna say, yeah. And I mean, but so how does a person go from that to being a professor at a college? You know what I mean? It's like you go from one thing, like you guys we're considered having the most profanity. We're labeled that, and then you go to teaching at a college.
Well, I mean, it's about the want to be, you know, to be as impactful on the culture as possible, right? So if you look at rap music from the South, pre-murder as opposed to post-murder, right? That's where you get the tenacity that a Ludacris brings in the booth, a T.I., a Killer Mike, right? Guys that want to be able to prove their lyrical dexterity without compromising their Southern integrity, right? And I don't think before then it was even really considered that was a possibility, because if you tried to be too lyrical, you would literally be called trying to rap New York.
Yeah, one of them New York, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
New York ass niggas.
Right. You trying to rap like them New York niggas, you know what I'm saying? And so that kind of changed the tone on what was acceptable from a Southern MC.
Yeah.
Right. Now teaching at Rice, that's a big leap, right? Because that's partially about the music that I've made, but then it's also about the cultural impact, right, of being a part of the Southern rap movement and being also able to speak to it, right? Because keep in mind, I never went to college. You know, I never went to college, but when Professor Anthony Penn asked me to come and co-teach the class after I had interviewed, you know, I'd done an interview kind of similar to what we're doing now in the classroom. I was like, well, how can I teach at a university and I've never been to a university? He said, you know, very plainly that what I have to bring to the table, the level of expertise, the education, and the insight, you can't go to a university and be accredited for that anyway. There's no way to learn what I know on a college campus, right? So, like, what degree would you go to college for to get to learn what you've learned? That's all from real-time, real-life experience.
Right. Fucking right.
You know, and so, you know, operating on that notion, here I am, you know?
And now, is it true that they ask you to perform and you refuse to perform because you rather just keep that separate?
Yeah, I didn't want to compromise my my educational integrity on campus, right? I didn't want there to be a possibility of people confusing the professor from the MC, right? I wanted to maintain the integrity of the course that I was teaching, and I wanted to only be seen as that educator in that classroom.
Makes sense.
Right? And I didn't want to put the students in a position to see me on campus and wonder if they're talking to the professor or the rapper. So I felt like on campus.
Very smart, Bun.
Yeah, I think on campus it was necessary to separate the two, right? And to clearly only be seen in a certain light on the yard, right? And so because of that, yeah, I turned down Springfest probably 2-3 different times. Pretty good money too, because Rice is a private university, so they got their bread.
They got some money.
Well, that just goes to show what kind of guy you are too. You know,
stand up. That's some stand up shit.
Yeah.
And then I'm the first, right? Like I'm one of the first, right? Because Ninth Wonder is teaching in North Carolina. Play is teaching in, I think, Central Florida, right? So there are people who are in an educational, from an educational aspect on college universities, right? And to keep in mind that the guy that I'm co-teaching the class with is the most tenured professor of color at Rice University.
Oh, shit.
So I don't want to fuck up his standing on the yard anyway. Because when they brought me in to teach this, I had to sit with the president of the university.
Yeah, they just ain't about to bring you in. You got to go through that whole process.
No, I had to sit with the president of the university. I had to sit with the proctor. You know, there was waters that I had to navigate for them to really be sure that this was something, one, not only that they wanted, but two, that I would be the right person for it.
Right.
Right? Because the university is taking a chance on having someone on the yard speaking to their students, right, who could potentially put the university in a bad light, right? But it turns out, while I was teaching, I want to say maybe my second year of teaching, it was the 100-year anniversary of the university. And there was a major fundraising effort happening, and everybody wanted to meet the rapper that talked, right?
Hey, man.
And so I got brought over to a lot of different fundraising dinners from different schools, right? Because this is a humanities course that I teach, right? It's not a music course, right? So I'm in the humanities religious studies department, right? I'm not in the music department, but I have students from the athletic program. I have students from the agricultural program. I have students from architecture, but even more importantly, I have students from business. Yeah. And the business school is kind of what keeps the lights on at Rice University.
That's what Rice is known for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so all of these different people like, hey, we're having our fundraising dinner this Thursday. There are a lot of people that would love to meet you. We'd love to have you over. I'm like, yeah, cool, no problem. You know, it was, so I went from a lot of question marks to a lot of exclamation points. It was really tight, man. I can't front.
Well,
really tight.
Let's go from you being a professor to politics a little bit. We got to touch on this definitely before we get out of here. Why Beto O'Rourke? I'm just gonna keep it's cut and dry. Why?
I liked him, you know. I liked him, and I don't necessarily have to, you know, go with the popular person.
Yeah.
I have to align myself with people that, one, I agree with. Yeah. Two, that I get along with, and three, that I feel that I can justify co-signing. And Beto met all three of those. He met all three of those.
But Beto anti-gun though, and after this incident you just had, did it kind of? Would you get behind somebody again like Beto? That's not necessarily pro-gun.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. You know what I'm saying? I was more aligned with a lot of other philosophies that he had, legalization of marijuana, particularly immigration, right, in the state of Texas. But that being said, I wasn't giving my guns up, you know? No.
Hey, Bun, we're glad you didn't, brother. We glad you did.
I made that very clear. I made that very clear, that although I didn't agree with everything that he stood for, I agreed with enough of it to support him, right? Because that's a constitutional right. He'd have to, you know, he'd have to rescind an article of the Constitution in order for that to even happen, right? And I knew in a country like America that wasn't going to pass anyway, and he knew it wasn't a popular opinion to have. He knew that very well himself. I mean, he's a lifelong resident of the state of Texas, right? But we were at a time where having these AR-15s with these bump stocks that were making them fully automatic, like that was, for a lot of people, really crossing a lot of lines, you know? And we were in the midst of a lot of shooting incidents, and he just felt that that was an angle that he thought he could connect with, initially a large demographic in Texas, but later on a large demographic in America, right? And I think he underestimated how much Americans appreciate the right to have their guns, you know?
And the key word there is appreciate.
Right. I think if he hadn't been so strongly opposed to that particular part of his platform, right, and his agenda, I think he would have gotten a lot further. I honestly believe he would be a state senator. He would have been a senator. That's not even a question, right? But they questioned him on it. He held firm to his belief, which I can respect that, right? I wasn't always the popular choice, right? But I stuck to what I believed represented me well, and it eventually got me where I wanted to go. And so I could respect him knowing that he was representing something that a lot of people really wasn't fucking with. I admired the tenacity of that opinion, But I really enjoyed working with him. I don't regret supporting him at all.
Have you ever thought about, and I know Jamie might want to come back to politics, but I was just sitting here thinking, like those groups like with Killer and LP with Run the Jewels and like a Slaughterhouse. Have you thought about partnering up with another rapper on a group like that?
No, not at all. I think because I feel like if you look at Slaughterhouse, all of those are solo artists, right? So are Killer and LP. So the concept of them starting a group doesn't go against what it is that people know them for. It's an addition, right? The anomaly for me is being a solo artist because everyone knows me from being in a group, right? And I felt like I was in the greatest group ever. So I never wanted to be a solo artist. Yeah. I did solo music out of necessity because I had to do something to keep the UGK movement going.
Yeah.
Right? That was my only reason for even becoming a solo artist. Pimp C doesn't go to jail, I'll probably never make a solo album.
Interesting.
And so, no, it never occurred to me to join with someone and make another group. I feel like it would be a disservice to my legacy. I think the insinuation that everybody would draw from it would be that I'm trying to recreate UGK in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And I feel like I owe Pimp more than that,
What young niggas out here you see now, who are these young rappers you see that have similarities to Pimp, who you really rock with and you fuck with and be like, who got the most similarities?
I saw a very concerted effort by Kevin Gates, right, to kind of emulate the aura, let's say, of a Pimp C. Yella Beezy is working very hard to try to carry on Pimp C's legacy. But here's the thing, like some people can have the attitude, but not necessarily the aptitude. That's the difference.
I like that.
I think that there are some people out there who could channel his, I don't want to just say aggression, right? But let's say his insistency, right? Like his attitude, like some people can get close to that, but almost no one can emulate the musicality, right?
Oh, you're right about that. And that nigga Pimp, and I mentioned this earlier, he was not one to bite his tongue. And
there's a lot of guys like that. There's a lot of guys out here that won't bite their tongue.
Yeah, but
right?
But Pimp,
but
like you said, it was a whole different. He had a whole different aura about him, man.
Look, all boxers talk shit, right? All boxers talk shit. Boxing is a sport just like rap that comes with a lot of braggadocio. But you gotta be able to back that shit up.
Hey.
Fucking right. Fucking right.
So look, before we're running out of time, but I've been doing since we started last week with Luke, and we're in quarantine. I just want to play a real quick, fun game since we're stuck in quarantine. If you had to be stuck between these two people, who would you pick? When I say their names, just whatever name comes to your mind first. So if you had to be stuck in quarantine between Slim Thug or Paul Wall.
Probably Slim.
Okay.
Right. I feel like because both of them are really good friends of mine. I've known them both for years and years. But Slim has how can I put this without disrespecting anybody? I feel like Slim and I have the same kind of energy.
Okay.
Right? We're both, Slim and I are very calm, laid back people. Paul has a lot of energy.
Okay. So Scarface or Ghetto Boys?
Scarface.
Okay.
Scarface, definitely.
And then Meg Thee Stallion or Lizzo?
Probably Megan. Lizzo just seems like a little too extra, right?
Well, they say, I hear they say Meg is kind of the female version of you. That's the word on the street.
I think she's closer to Pimp. I think she's a lot closer to
Really?
Pimp. Yeah, I feel like Megan has more of a what the fuck you say kind of attitude. And I feel like Lizzo's just here to have a good time. Right? But she's always like trying to have a good time. It needs to be seen having a good time. And I feel like a lot of Megan's best stuff is really private, right? Like if Megan's really, really turning up, that probably is a little bit more private.
There you go.
Hey, we talked about murder earlier. I want to talk about real quick this international players now. So this motherfucker Pimp really was that adamant, man. He wasn't fucking with Andre 3000's verse. Like, was you feeling the same as Pimp? Was both of y'all really?
That's a big misconception. That's not true at all.
Okay.
Because that's not really true at all. And I'm not really sure where that story
So let's clear that up right now. So that's a misconception there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where that came from. You know what I'm saying? Because if Pimp didn't want it, Pimp wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing about him. Like, if he wasn't feeling it, he wasn't fucking with it. You know?
Yeah.
Big Pimpin might have been the only time where he kind of reluctantly agreed to do something, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why Pimp's verse is only 8 bars. He was like, you know, because he didn't want to do that record at all. And he was like, fuck it, you know what? I'm going to do it, B. I'm going to do it for you, Bun. But I ain't giving them but 8 bars. And now they're probably 8 of the most well-known bars.
Boy, for real.
In the world. Like, you may not know my verse, you may not know Jay's verse, but Smoking I Pulling Up, Keep It Lean Up. It's the greatest sing-along of all time.
With a Grammy.
Exactly. Well, nominated. We didn't. Here's the thing. We were nominated, but Jay-Z boycotted that year.
Yeah. So you knew y'all want to go win.
Yeah. So we you know, he boycotted. I'm like, man, we got the biggest. We literally had, and not just rap. We had the biggest song in the world that year.
Yes.
Like, no song got more played on radio stations on the planet Earth that year than Big Pimpin'. It was ridiculous.
I know people that didn't really listen to rap and they still knew that song and word for word.
20 years later, it's easily the song I'm most recognized for on the planet. Like, I can go to any country, and I've been to probably over 50 different countries around the world.
Oh, wow.
And that song comes on in a club and people start dancing.
It's a rap.
Like, it's not even a question.
What was what's your biggest lesson you learned from Jay Prince? I know y'all have had a long-standing relationship. A lot of people think that UGK was signed to rap a lot, but solo individually y'all were. But I had Jay Prince on the show. Jamie, when was that? Last year, I believe, Jay Prince came on the show. And I always thought he was one of the brightest business minds and just an actual stand-up all-around dude from the times I've been with him back in my early days in the industry. What was the biggest lesson, personally or professionally, did you get from Jay Prince from y'all years of knowing each other?
Integrity. Yeah, I heard you. I'm sorry, somebody called. Integrity, easily. All a man has in this world is his word. That works personally, professionally, anywhere, right? Any aspect of life. Yeah. Right. And that's always been the thing that he can. And here's the thing: people think he's this very unapproachable, disagreeable person. Nothing like that is true at all. At least from my perspective, dealing with it, right?
He was great.
Very solid, cool, laid back, just a stand-up dude from the times, and I've been around him numerous times. Just a stand-up dude, and I know, like I said, your relationship has spanned years.
But one thing, if there's something that he would ask you to do, if you say you're gonna do it, he's gonna hold you to that, right? And that becomes a problem. Some people in the moment don't know how to, you know, there's a lot of people in this world that they don't know how to say no.
Yeah. Right?
Because they assume that there's going to be friction or conflict if they say no. But you just got to be a man that stands your ground. There's many incidents, many different business situations that he put in front of me, and I was like, no, I can't do that. We're not going to do that like that. If you want me to do this for you, then we got to do it like this.
Yeah.
Or I can't do it. You just got to be a man about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not easily, look, with all due respect to Jay Prince and Rap A Lot Records and the world in general, I'm not easily intimidated enough to say yes when I mean no.
Yeah.
And I done whooped ass. I done got my ass whooped.
That's life.
But we gonna fight.
In those days coming up when that Houston scene was really starting to go, was like between the Lil Flips and I know you just mentioned Thug, Slim Thug, and Screw and all those guys and Paul Wall, was that, you know, with y'all being from Port Arthur and not necessarily being from Houston, a lot of these niggas kind of, you know, was it some funny style shit going on?
Never.
Okay.
Never,
good.
because musically nobody could fuck with us.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever been a threat to what me and Pimp did. I still think we're the greatest rap group ever to exist by a mile. Right now, you may have people that are more known, that have more notoriety, that sold more records, that made more money. But just from an aspect of making great music and being a great group, nobody fucks with me and Pimp. Ever, on any level.
Underground motherfucking kings, nigga.
And they never will. So I'm not, look, do everybody like me? Probably not. But you got to tell me you don't like me. And I don't think they want to do that. Very few people in my life have told me, because niggas know once I turn it on, I'm not turning it off. So, and look, if you don't agree with me, that's cool.
Thing. Yeah.
That's cool. I can live with that. You know what I'm saying? But if you just genuinely don't like me, you're going to have to tell me that. And you're going to have to explain that. Because I ain't never done nobody wrong. I don't owe nobody no money. I ain't never fucked nobody's woman. You know what I'm saying?
Just some stand-up shit, Jamie. Jamie, that's why I fuck with this nigga Bun B. That's why I fuck with him.
I never took nothing from nobody. None of that shit. My reputation is A1 out here.
Pristine out here, nigga.
So if you don't like me, it's really, you got a problem with you.
Wow. Hello.
Hey, before we get out of here, man, what's on the political? Do we see you coming up being the mayor of Port Arthur one day? What's up? I know you go jump. You jumping all over.
My cousin was the mayor of Port Arthur, and I've been good friends with the previous mayor of Houston, the current mayor of Houston. I even talked to Kasim about it when Kasim was mayor, about what's it actually like to be, you know, a black mayor, you know, and that kind of stuff. And you'd be surprised. I get asked probably over the last 3 elections. I've had different people, very prominent, very liquid, very influential people in the city of Houston. They're currently, now that our current mayor, Sylvester Turner, this is his last term. And there are a lot of people that want me.
I thought he just got elected.
No, this is his 3rd term.
Oh, okay.
I mean, second term. No, this is his 3rd, this is his last term.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Unless I'm mistaken, this is his last term. But regardless, they always ask me to run for mayor, right? And as far as I can tell, the main reason to become the mayor of a city, right, is to utilize the resources that are at hand for the mayor and the office. Now, you can either use those resources to help the people, or you can use those resources to help yourself. But it's legitimately always been about the resources that are afforded to the office, right? I don't feel I need those resources to make a difference, because I've been able to make a difference both personally, professionally, and culturally without the resources that the office affords, right? and I'm not beholden to nobody but God himself.
Yeah, because let me tell you something. That public life versus private life, hey, my nigga, hey, man, it's a big difference. Hey, once you get into that arena and that public life, it's a whole different ball game, baby.
And like Sylvester, you know, our current mayor, his first year in office, he had Harvey. Right? And you know, when like one of the first responsibilities of a mayor of a city is that when a city employee, whether it be a police officer, a fireman, right? All the way down to the people that pick up your trash, whatever, whenever something happens to a public employee, it is the duty of the mayor to contact the family.
Yeah. Hey,
you
man.
know? And so
Mayor Turner, it's a lot of people don't realize, man, they see the glamour and the glitz as with this music industry, and it's the same when you're in a leadership position, because like you just named the hurricane, and then also when y'all had the rollover like Atlanta, a lot of people, you know, transplants after Katrina from New Orleans, they went to Houston and they came here, and then that's a whole nother, you know, being able to juggle that. It's a lot, man. So
the day you become mayor, right? You sign on to a job that half the people in the city hate you for.
Yep.
Day one. Off the rip. Half the city is looking to bring you down. I've been in a position through my music, my cultural interaction, my activism, and all these different things. I've been able to bring the city together.
Yeah.
You come to a Bun B show, you see every walk of life in the city of Houston. Every time I give an opinion on something that might be political, my fan base kind of splits down the middle, right?
Yeah.
And even though I hold steadfast to what I believe in, I'm not just going to walk into something to where all these people that have see me in a certain light automatically hate me and don't even know why. They won't even know why they hate me. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot that comes with it. Will I do it eventually? I don't know. Maybe. But as of today, I got the best job in the world. I represent UGK for life.
For life. And I want to say thank you, Bun, like for the things culturally and community-wise that you and the TIs and the Killer Mikes, what y'all doing, man, without running for office, but still having an impact. Hey, man, I just want to say thank you, bro.
Still leading and guiding the community. That's amazing.
And we appreciate you. I want to say before we get out of here that I know when we was on the phone, Bun, I was telling you about the gathering spot. And when you come to Atlanta after all this is over, I'm going to take you by the gathering spot because this is an incredible place. They have locations in LA, DC, but the one here that I frequent a lot is incredible. It's a member-only, Black-owned spot. Black-owned spot. So when you come and we do this part two, because I got about 20, 30 more questions. We could have, Jamie, we could have went on and on. So we're going to have a part two in person at the gathering spot.
I'm all for it, Jerry.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. I want to thank you.
Really appreciate you.
Give everybody that's streaming, that's watching, that's listening, your social media handles.
On Instagram, I'm Bun B, one word, BUNB. On Twitter, I'm Bun B Trilogy. And on Facebook, I'm Bun B of UGK, I think.
Okay. Cool. Miss Jamie Page, give everybody your
Jamie, thank you so much.
No, thank you. I miss Jamie Page. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Bun B legend. Thank you. Appreciate you taking time out your evening to do this with us. And
on all my social, of course, I am Big Jerry Clark, the Legendary Jerry podcast. Go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, Legendary Jerry. Continue watching, and we're going to continue having incredible legends like we have tonight this evening with our brother Bun B. And before we sign off, I dedicate every show to three people that are no longer with me. My uncle, my mentor, Mr. Stanley Bethel, my friend, my partner, Mr. Shakir Stewart, and my dad, Mr. Thomas T. Clark. And tonight we're going to add, of course, we couldn't do this show. We're going to add Mr. Chad Butler, a.k.a. Pimp C. Rest in peace, Pimp. Bun B, thank you. Gathering Spot, thank you. Miss Jamie Page, thank you. Bun, we looking forward to getting you here in Atlanta when this is over with. and we're going to have another conversation in person at the gathering spot.
I'm up for it, baby. Part 2 coming soon.
That's right. Tell your wife we said hello, man, and y'all stay COVID-free, brother.
Likewise, man. Everybody be safe out there and be smart. Jerry, Jamie, thank y'all so much, man.
Okay, man.